in 30 seconds.
Hey.
Hello, and thank you for joining this new episode of Frame by Frame podcast by Nikon, where we delve into the thought and the hard work that happens behind the camera before you see the beautiful photos and videos on your small devices or small phones. Today we are here at Xposure, at Zone D in particular, the Nikon Pavilion, and I am joined by somebody I personally have a great deal of respect for. The first Emirati and Arab female wildlife photographer, Suad Swedi. Thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure to talk to somebody who has done this, the first female photographer from the Arab world. Tell me about this. How does it make you feel?
It makes me actually being in the wild and doing what I'm doing. I was able to hide it for 17 years, and I feel fully alive in the wild, and I do it out of passion. The great thing is that when you're doing it out of passion, and you're not tying it to anything, and you really love the detail of what you're doing, and I think it's true for any kind of hobby, that if you're doing it out of love and out of real passion, not tying it to who's going to see it or like it or follow it, it makes you feel really fully alive. So that's why I feel wild is my place.
That's actually a very important point, because if you decide to be a landscape photographer or a portrait photographer or any genre that does not require you to be in the heart of the wild, that's something that you can do in your daily life.
Correct.
But for you to do, now we'll come back to this point in a little bit, but more often than not, if you want to shoot wildlife and if you want to take the very, very special photos that we see from Suad Swedi, you have to travel, you have to pack gear, you have to carry things on your back, you have to plan, you have to do all the logistics.
Correct.
It's a lot of hard work.
It is.
But
and
yet,
lots of details as well.
a lot of details,
Yes.
and yet you want to be that. You want to be a wildlife photographer.
Yes. I think going back also to passion, as I mentioned, it's the thing that really drives you. And it's the thing that lets you go ignore all of the obstacles. It's hard. It is hard. And I think life in general is hard, and it's not a smooth road, it's a bumpy road. But I feel like if it's part of who you are and part of your personality, you'll go for it, So the challenges behind the scenes are extreme. But I think the passion of why you're going lets you know.
Okay, how did it start? Tell me about the beginnings.
The beginning started, I think most of the people know that the beginning started when I was in the States studying, and I felt lonely, and I felt like I really need a friend to be with me, and not a friend a companion, not a friend that is attached to, attached to emotions, but something like a hobby, something to be with me. And that's when I decided to get a camera. And when I got the camera, I started at the very beginning with nature and wildlife, not knowing that I was actually documenting for the UAE Women Encyclopedia that will be used after 17 years.
Wow.
Yes.
So little did you know that this will become your full-time profession in the future.
Absolutely, yes.
But technology changed a lot, right?
Yes.
Now you are a very, very young lady, don't get me wrong, but from the time you started until now, you're shooting with the Z9 at the moment, right?
Correct.
There's technology that makes things easier for you.
Yes.
But yet, you have to learn the basics, you have to know everything. What is the most important thing that you have to learn when you want to become wildlife photographer?
Well, for me, photography, we grow and technology grows with us. Maybe technology is growing even on a faster pace now. So for me is that I always want to learn. I always want to expand my knowledge, not only when taking the image, also how I'm taking it, and how what do I like about it, and just improving one by one. When you know your gears, that's it. You're a beast in the wild. Because you have the car is moving when I'm capturing, and the animal is moving. You have a split of a second, and then there are moments that never repeats itself. You know what I mean? So as soon as you have everything set up, and knowing your gears perfectly, and knowing, because every topic has its different kind of settings. But for me, I have split of a second, as I mentioned. I remember one of the scenes that I captured, and it was It's a rare scene of a cheetah going up the tree, and I didn't know that it's going to go up. I didn't have my camera like portrait. I had it landscape, and in disbelief, it just in a split of a second. But thanks God, I had all of my settings perfectly prepared for that moment. So I was able to capture every single frame going up, standing, and coming down.
Nice.
So, you don't want to any missed opportunities.
Well, in modern technology, a split of a second is something that you can capture 5 frames with, right? Because if you're shooting the
Absolutely.
Z9 or the Z8, you're
Yes, yes.
capturing 30 frames per second. So
Correct.
this helps, but at the same time, you have to be ready there. The thing is, when you're shooting portraits, your subject understands you, and they are there to be shot.
Correct.
And you're shooting landscape, your subject is inanimate. It's like they are not moving. You move and
Yes, you're
you
right.
frame your. But when you're shooting animals, the subject is scared of you, far from you, unpredictable. I think there's a lot of learning that needs to happen at that level. You need to understand the behavior of the animal
Correct.
you're shooting, right?
Yes,
What
yes.
was the most difficult animal for you to shoot?
It's not the most. It's just.
Most challenging, perhaps.
I think the environment is challenging more than capturing, the animal itself.
All right, tell me about that. You
Because
were just telling me about it right before
because
we started.
yes, because let me tell you that the challenge of the camera, as I mentioned, it becomes after 20 years, it becomes part of you. The lens is my extended eye, and I live in my camera. People will tell you when I'm on site and I see an animal, I don't want to miss anything. It's not the automatic kind of. The automatic focus. I go into manual, so that's what I pan, in a manual way. But the environment, sometimes it's extremely hot, and sometimes it's extremely cold, and sometimes it's raining, and sometimes the car is like sliding. I think the blind lioness who was fighting against Sebadot lions from a different pride, because it's a number, and it was, a group like
Pride, yeah.
animal, yeah.
Yeah.
And the movement is like all over. So that's a bit just thinking what's the most important. And then her small cubs were in like a
Oh.
different kind of like also angle. So it's just focusing how do you want the story to be told, and which angle you want it to happen.
Let me ask you a question. In today's world with social media and everything, I think video is taking precedence slowly
Correct.
over photos.
Absolutely.
But primarily, we as photographers, we want to take photos. We want to take
Correct.
photos that are
Yes.
excellent.
Yes.
But how do you decide to switch to video? And when do you decide to switch to video when you are shooting in the wild?
See, going to the passion that you have, going to knowing yourself, and going to what you really love. For me, I love the image. I love that split second that you can capture and share with the world. My heart beats in that. But when there's lots of movement and I know the frame of a picture will not serve me, that's when I change to video. And yes, lots of things will influence your decision. Now everyone is moving, as you mentioned, to video, but doesn't hurt that you keep yourself, tight and attached to what you love. I think that and mixing both, it doesn't really.
Sometimes it pains you, right? Like I know I have to take a video because it will go viral on Instagram, but I want to take a photo. I don't want to take a video, right?
Go with what you love.
Yeah.
Go with what you love, because I think it gives life to the image. It gives you feel people who see if you're doing the video just to please like what's happening in the world. You will not really be satisfied, and the passion and love will not be shown in your image. So sometimes you have to satisfy
Do it
yourself.
from the heart, and
Absolutely, and go with
followers
that.
will come
Yes,
eventually.
absolutely.
So you shoot Nikon,
Yep.
and we are here at the Nikon Pavilion, and we keep hearing the burst sound from the camera nearby, right?
Yes.
How did it affect your career, or how did it improve your career when you started shooting with Nikon mirrorless, especially when the Z9 came out?
Well, I started to shoot mirrorless I tried it a month ago in my last trip
Yeah.
to India. It's amazing, and the settings are the same, but the quality is totally different, and you should upgrade yourself, upgrade your gears, because what's happening in technology will really improve the images that you take.
Of course. You were just telling me about the trip to the Himalayas in a
Correct.
minus something?
It was the altitude that we reached was approximately 4,700.
4,700 meters above sea level.
Correct. And then it was minus 28.
Minus 28 degrees Celsius.
Yes.
How did the Z9 and the Z8 perform in that extreme weather?
It's like a beast, as always.
So,
Yes.
no issues, no freezing,
No,
nothing?
I didn't have, thanks God, I didn't have, even with the cold weather, I didn't have issues with my batteries. The batteries die,
course. Yeah.
easily. But at that altitude, at that weather, I didn't have any issues, thanks God.
What was your preference there, Z8 or Z9?
Well, for wildlife, definitely for the
For the
Z9.
bigger grape?
Yes, it's and the beautiful thing about the Z9 compared to the D8, D6 is that it's light and weight. So there's a huge difference, carrying this lightweight, and I had the 600 TC on it, and it's performed beautifully.
The 600 TC is a beautiful lens, isn't it?
It's an amazing lens. Yes, it really satisfied my needs, because you also need to know your style of photography. I'm the kind of person who likes, if it's a portrait of an animal, I like the creamy background, and I like to decide if I want it to be extremely creamy or if I want it to show the world a bit of the background.
Bit of the background, yeah.
And then the Z9, I had the lens for that, also mirrorless. The lens was 200 to 70 to 200.
7200 is a great lens.
Correct, and it was for the scenery that I explored. It was really beautiful. So
The 7200 is, I believe, it's a must-have lens for every wildlife
Absolutely.
photographer, for every photographer basically. But for wildlife, people think that you have to be always above 200.
So, no, definitely, because pure wildlife, the animals there are lots of times the animal is moving towards you, so the super telephoto lens will not serve you.
Yeah.
You need something,
Especially if it's a large
something.
mammal, like say an elephant or
Yes,
something.
yes.
And
you
also for
definitely,
a bit of the background, a bit of the environment, right?
Yes, if you it depends on your preference. Yes, there are times when I feel like the background really distracts, and I don't want it to be part of my frame. And sometimes the background and the sunset or the sunrise is magical, and I want it to be. It's just knowing your style and knowing
your style, and also where you are and what opportunity you get to take this photo.
Correct. You don't want to miss any opportunity.
This hurts, doesn't it? Because if by any chance you're like looking at your camera or changing your lens and you look and see something happening and you're not ready to shoot it,
Correct.
it hurts.
It hurts a lot. So I don't because it's become second nature, and everything, because I know where all of my gears are. Just adjust while my eyes on the finder, and I'm good to go.
You always shoot with the finder.
Yeah.
Even in the mirrorless world where the screen is just as good, but you have to have the finder, right?
I have to live it through my eyes first. Yes, definitely.
I feel that there is something about the finder. It's not nostalgic. It's actually it's an actual thing. It's a biological / mechanical thing, because we have to see it in a confined way, I suppose.
I feel, as I mentioned, it's become my style. And as soon as I see the animal, it doesn't matter how long it's there, but everyone will tell you she's living in her camera, So no distraction around me. I can see it. I can at least predict the next step, I'm not distracted. Like a painter, they have to be in their own world.
Yes.
That's my world. So the finder is like...
What's the next animal that you plan to shoot?
I have a long list, It's just where life is going to take me.
Yeah.
So...
no plans in the near future?
I don't... even for my last... like most of my trips, even for my last trip, I was invited. And I wasn't sure if I'll be able to do it, because... it's challenging. It's a mental challenge, and then the environment and the weather. And behind the scene for my last trip, I was like with oxygen. So it depends on
Did it take a lot of preparation to be able to breathe at 4,700 meters?
Preparation. This is, I think, the most challenging trip that took lots of small details that you had to calculate, and then. From the altitude of 3,000, that's when you start to feel that your body, something is wrong and different, and with your body. And then when I reached my final destination, the time that we had to acclimatize and rest and do nothing, they told me there is a sighting. What do you want?
Okay.
So I'm like,
It's,
I'm here.
it's an already answered question, isn't it?
I
I want the
can.
sighting.
It's dangerous to do that. I'm not asking people to put themselves in danger. Really, really, yes, you're into that environment, you're eager, but don't forget yourself and your health safety.
That's actually something that is very important. A few months ago, in collaboration with Nikon, we did the Ultimate Guide to Wildlife Photography, and important part of that video was dedicated to don't forget your own safety
Yes,
and don't
yes.
compromise your own safety.
Correct. Because you can be placed in very dangerous situations.
Yeah.
Even when you're documenting below, like 20 minus 28 is it's extreme.
Yeah.
But you really have to be aware of your senses, aware of your symptoms, aware of yourself, just your general, and then.
How easy was it to shoot with the gloves?
The gloves, we have two layers of gloves. So I managed to shoot with one hand, with only one layer, and the other hand was
With the two layers.
fully.
So the hand on the lens with
It's,
full protection.
no, it was actually on a tripod.
Okay.
But for the buttons and the
yeah.
settings, only one hand had
Yeah.
one glove. It's challenging. It hurts, but I had to do it.
Before that, you told me you went on the opposite
Correct.
extreme in Jaipur, right?
Correct. It
47
was,
degrees.
It was 47. It was the other, and you have to really make sure that your body is not hot, because it really, really gets. It gets you cook in that you don't have
Your brain
any,
boils, literally.
everything, and then you have to cover the camera.
Of course.
So because it gets extremely hot.
This is a main concern among photographers. I am in an extremely hot weather. Am I going to worry about overheating from my camera? What was your experience with the Z8?
I had to cover it. I really had to cover it, and that's one of the not for the Z9. I had the D6 by then.
Okay.
Yes, but you really have to cover your gears, and then you have to make sure that your body is.
I'm having the feeling that you're still nostalgic to the DSLR era, aren't you?
Not really. Maybe I didn't have the enough time to get into the mirrorless.
What was the first Nikon camera that you owned?
I had the D70.
D7.8.
Yes, and it started to grow with me, then the D70S,
Okay.
and then the D350, and then the D700.
Yes.
I think 350 or 300. It's one of, I think it's, and then the D700s, and then the D4S, and then the D56 and the mirrorless.
What was the one that you feel you got attached to it emotionally the most?
Attached to it
To the camera, emotionally.
When I entered the flagship cameras,
Okay.
the D4S.
The D4S.
I couldn't go back to
It's
because
a historically great camera, isn't it?
yes, and it really serves my need. It really, in the wild, it's exactly what I need. And now even the mirrorless, the beautiful thing about it is the weight.
Yeah.
Because I carry lots of two bodies
Yes.
and lots of lenses, so the weight is beautiful.
Of course.
And having a number of frames per second is very, very, very important, because it depends on what's happening in the wild and how many frames you get to choose.
Yeah.
But I'm not the kind of person who would do lots of frames, because you
This
have to
comes with
review
experience,
it.
right?
Yes, but it's really for wildlife and unexpected.
I once
situations.
interviewed a wildlife photographer, and he said the more experienced you get, the less shots you do every time you go on an excursion.
Yes, and also like when you're on site, what I would definitely advise for any, not necessarily for wildlife, in photography, 90% do it with your camera, and then post process, because I'm the kind of person I don't like to be sitting in front of my computer.
Of course,
I'd rather
you're a
be
wildlife
in the,
kind of
I'd rather,
kind of lady.
You don't want to like post process forever, so do most of the settings the right. Put the right
Frame correctly, expose correctly.
everything on site. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I am a photographer. I'm interested in getting into wildlife photography. Give me advice. 3 pieces of advice for a new wildlife photographer.
Patience, know your gear, pray a lot.
For safety.
For safety and for the image, because sometimes you can, it's patience and passion.
Yeah.
I feel like what makes me go through all of the obstacles, because as I mentioned, I've been into two extreme, 47 and minus 28, And I didn't mention when it's raining,
Yeah.
I didn't mention when we're sliding in the car. But I feel what makes you go through all of it, patience and passion.
What is the first place I should visit when I am a new wildlife photographer?
Explore your home around you.
Nice.
The closer it is, and you will understand if you're into it and if you like it or not.
And
Start from around
many
you.
people think that I can only shoot because I remember when we talked about traveling, I told you we'll come back to this a little bit
Yes.
later because that was my point. You can be a wildlife photographer and shoot beautiful photos in the backyard of
You're
your home.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yes.
And here in the UAE, there are beautiful spots, right?
Yes. Yes.
I always go to Al Qudra when I'm testing new gear.
Al-Marmu, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Al-Qudra is beautiful. It's just, it will test your passion,
Yeah.
a true passion to what you're doing. Because if you're able to go over and over and over again and spend lots of hours, doing whatever it is that you're passionate about, and you feel you're not bored and you can do this for a lifetime, then it's meant for you.
Okay, is wildlife photography a professional path? Is it easy for a wildlife photographer to commercialize his work?
Um, I think if you believe in what you're doing and you really have, as I mentioned, passion and love, and you're really improving, self-improving, you can take it in different kind of fields, You can take it into the educational, you can take it into a documentary, it depends on exactly where do you want this to go with you.
Yeah.
There are lots of things, lots of people, when they meet me, they tell me, we look at this channel all the time. We never met a person who does. You tend to forget that there's a huge crew behind the
yeah.
scene.
Of course.
But yeah, definitely you can definitely work a lot with what you're doing.
Let's go back to what we started with, and this will be the closure of our episode today. You are the first female Arab, Emirati and Arab wildlife photographer.
Yes.
Did you get a lot of pressure socially? How was your family, for example? Were they supportive of this career?
My mom is my backbone, and I thank God for the detail of my life. If it wasn't meant for me, if it wasn't this wasn't meant for me by God, that this is my story, and my mom to be my backbone and my superhero, I would never be where I am today. She is 100% supportive, and I think the way we grew up and our mental thinking, and traveling a lot made her look at life from a different perspective. And I always thank her because when I have doubts, she's the one who's there to push me. My world starts from her and from her opinion, what she thinks, and it ends through her.
That's
And
so
from
beautiful.
yes.
That's so
So
beautiful.
if people who don't like wildlife or have a different kind of opinion, and you respect it because everyone is different, but you have to live your passion. It's your life and your choices and your decision. So you
That's,
definitely have to
that's
live
just
your passion.
beautiful.
Yes.
And with this, I'm going to conclude this episode of Frame by Frame, the podcast by Nikon, in which we delve into the thought and the hard work behind the camera before you see the beautiful work in front of you. Thank you very much for joining us, and we invite you all to come here to Xposure, Zone D, and experience the advanced technology that allows for the beautiful photos that Suad took in the Himalayas. Right here in the pavilion, you'll have the gear right in front of you, and you'll get to test it and play with it a little bit. And until the next episode, this is Dr. Ali Mohammed, your host for today, saying thank you very much for joining us, and see you soon.